meeting. I thought that was, I very much appreciate that. Uh, and let's get started. I
Hey,
want to
Joe.
apologize a bit for
Joe?
having this on Mother's Day, but the reason for this is that we have the final board meeting of the year on Thursday this week. And I will be writing any comments or questions or suggestions from the congregation and taking that back to the board for discussion. So, and as you all know, this is a conversation. There's no vote, but there's a lot of information that I intend to share, and I'm sure it will generate some questions. So with that, we have the first slide. That's my finance committee there, Sandy Atkins, Ron Dallas, and Todd Collett. I want to highlight the work that Sandy and Ron have done on this budget. I had given them a challenge to get the expense side of the budget done by March, and they met the mark. That was a great job. Also, the presentation that you're about to see was generated by those two folks. They did a fantastic job with that. And I also want to recognize Kitty Merrill for some dusting and cleaning after the fact, so on the presentation. So good job by everybody. So the next slide is, what is a budget? It's a plan for spending responsibly given expected income. It's an educated guess, and it's a statement of values. It's a moral document. And to give you an idea of how it's a plan and an educated guess, this budget does not reflect the good news that Carolyn Bjorky shared with us this past week. So this is all prior to that. So this is why it's a plan. It's an educated guess. Things change all the time. And and the whole thing with a budget, it is designed to support the mission. We have a mission as a church, and the budget is designed to support that. And we have a role in deciding what that mission should be. Now, what happens after we approve the budget? Well, the staff, finance, ministry, and board monitor to make sure UCV remains financially healthy and adjust spending if necessary through the year. And we are limited to spending no more than 2% on an approved expense budget before requiring a congregational vote to spend more. So there are good guardrails in place to monitor and contain spending. Next slide. Oh yeah, budget process. This is the process we go through to determine what our budget is going to be. The personnel team recommends wages and benefits. The finance ministry projects pledge revenue in partnership with the generosity team. The budget team then reviews 12 months and year-to-date spending and inflation. We collect estimates and requests from staff, team leaders, utility companies, and service providers. The finance ministry then reviews and requests and projects for the current year. We submit the budget that reflects the current reality projected into the future. The board reviews, revises, and votes to recommend to the congregation. And the numbers I'm going to show you today, they've been in front of the board, and it has been approved to share with the congregation. Timing makes a difference, and why do we always end the year better than budget? Sometimes we do, and sometimes we don't. The expenses that we have in this presentation were approved at the April 17th meeting on the board, with that information through April 15th. So the board had the latest information on pledges and expenses. The last board meeting of the year is May 15th. As I mentioned earlier, it will be next Thursday, and they will approve the budget as submitted, or we may make changes, depending upon what some of the comments may be and some of the thinking. The generosity outreach is still ongoing. You can still send in a pledge card. There are no time limits. 78% of individuals and families have pledged. So far, pledges submitted are $2,000 more than in the budget approved by the board. So we've had a slight increase in terms of what you see on the charts today. Personnel budget. The personnel team led by David Henkel makes a recommendation to the finance ministry. We review UUA jobs titles, or they review UUA job titles, descriptions, and wage scales. They review covered California health insurance rates, staff performance, recommend a final rate and hours for each employee. The interim minister projected is at a rate recommended by UUA with the relocation money to come from the assistant minister's fund. The average recommended increase for this year is 3%. No change in staffing patterns or hours budgeted, but of course with the news from Carolyn Bierke, that gets thrown up in the air. Pledging alert. We include in the budget only pledges submitted for the fiscal year ending 2026. And then those who pay regularly but haven't made a new pledge, including those who pay once a year toward the end of the year at no change. So there are some folks who don't turn in a pledge card, but they just continue with their pledging going year to year, and we consider that. Pledge accounting changed this year to be more accurate, cash basis, which may explain why last year's budget appears to have been too high. Our budget, I think our budget last year may have been a bit too high. And the numbers you're going to see right now is an annualized number for this year, which just takes in the last 9 months of the year. Typically in April and May, we do receive like annual pledge payments. People do it as a result of their income tax, et cetera, et cetera. So the numbers could increase a bit. The cost to keep the church going is approximately $200 a month per person, or $2,400 per year. $400 per month per couple, or $4,800 per year. If, again, anybody wants to further increase their pledge, they can certainly do so. And key point, it's very easy to do this online. If you go to our website, and I think Reverend Daner even mentioned this in her homily today, is that you can use the website to make your pledge, and it's very fast and easy. So I wanted to highlight that as well. So the approach and the changes, the budget attempts to be as realistic as possible. Many program categories underspent in recent years, so budget brought down to match the usual spending. So if we look, we also will work with the teams to see what they've spent over the last year or two, and if they haven't reported back in a request, we'll usually use those numbers to put in the budget. It's a conservative approach. The telephone costs were high last year due to delays in system conversion. I am not going to get into the telephone system right now. It is a long, ugly story that we're still dealing with, but be that as it may. And this past year, there were no more legacy fund matches for increased pledges, and we don't include that in the budget for the coming year. The pledge budget. Our total budgeted pledge income for this coming year is $320,000. There are 140 pledging units, which are individuals or couples, families who made a pledge or regularly pay as if they had made a pledge. The average annual pledge is $2,298. That's our average annual pledge. Changes, this took a little while to get, and I really appreciate these numbers. 23 decreases, which had totaled out to 21,806. 75 no change, including up-to-date payers who haven't made a new pledge. 38 have made an increase, which adds $11,216. And there's 11 new ones totaling $9,400. So that's kind of how the changes have impacted.
Okay, I will tell this to you when you say it out there. There are 2 new pledges as of yesterday.
Hot off the press, 2 new pledges coming in yesterday. It's all good news. It's all good news. So here are some of the numbers, beginning with our income budget. Last year, our budget was $351,133. Our annualized actual this year is $277,164, which, as you can see, is significantly less. But I expect us to close that gap a bit with some annual pledges coming in, but it won't close the total gap. Other income, you can see that's from rent, auction, some of the investments. It doesn't include the LPL, our stock investments. And that totals out this year for $42,182. Next year, it'll be $47,110. So funding the mission total, this is all of our income added up, pledges and other income, $367,110. So it's a budget change of about $31,000 from our budget of $24,25. But I think because we're on a cash basis right now, we're far more accurate in determining what that budget should be, and it is extremely conservative. Next slide. These are our proposed operating expenses. So we're looking at an average of 3.1% increase or raises for our staffing based on CPI rate of 3% inflation over the last 12 months. So our staff numbers in the proposed budget, as you can see, actually go down a bit from our current annualized actuals and the current budget. It's $368,512, which is 78% of the budget. Building and administration is $75,742 in the current budget. This coming year will be $78,852. This includes things like insurance, telephone, electricity, things to keep the lights on. And then our program expenses, will be for $24,459 for a total operating expense of $471,823. So our surplus or deficit regular operating budget for the proposed budget 2025-2026 is $104,713. That is on the expenses. So the change in the budget is $30,200 from last year. Next slide. So this is the non-operating and the bottom line. So our non-operating expenses, which are our major maintenance reserves, sabbatical minister set aside, which you'll notice is set to zero. And I think maybe Reverend Dana could actually explain that a bit. We have quite a bit in that fund at the moment, and because we have an interim minister coming in, it won't be till the settled minister arrives in 2 years that we will begin to fund that again. So we don't, this particular year, need to put anything aside for that budget. The UUA program fund is $25,622, so additional operating expenses of $28,209. Our total bottom line for this year at the moment is $132,835, which is about $40,000-ish worse than last year. Actually, there it is right there. It's $45,113. Next slide. Here's where the money goes. RE Family Ministry, the budget is $101,697. Minister Sunday service, $150,000, $743. Administration is $80,231. Property, $60,245. Music is $51,674, and Congregational Life $75,75, and of course the UUA of $25,622. So this pie chart at a high level describes where we're placing our money. Next slide. So deliberations by the Finance Committee and the board. Other than increased pledging, what would it take to balance the budget? If we decrease raises by 1%, we can only save about $3,700. So in actuality, a 3% raise, not giving a raise is not going to save us a whole lot of money. Not much to do about utilities other than to cease watering the plants, using the building less, never use the heat or the air conditioning, or do cleaning with volunteers. Administrative expenses, no website, no electronic payments, no accountant. I mean, these are some of the questions you could throw out there, and the staff is 67% of expense budget. So these are kind of the questions that we have to ask. And honestly, One of the things, I think the prime mission, if you will, of an interim minister is to, I like Brian Buck's metaphor used this morning, is to hold a mirror up to us, for us to see and maybe reevaluate, how are we doing things? And I think that is very healthy. And I also want to include in that evaluation finance, because I think finance needs to be part of that evaluation by the interim minister. How are we spending our money? You know, are there better ways to spend our money? Is there other ways that we can draw our income? I mean, all of these things I think need to be on the plate of the interim minister that comes in. So I'm looking forward to that. Next slide. What happens when we operate at a deficit? Basically, it reduces our savings. Our savings represent the love and optimism of our past members in supporting the church's mission into the future. And that's outlined in blue, and I can tell you right now, that has played an amazing role in the success of this church. There is absolutely no question about that. And this is the numbers that we'll be drawing from. Unrestricted fund balances as of March 31st, 2025 total $308,565. That is the pool of money that we can draw from. That is basically unrestricted funding. It's not directed anywhere. There are no restrictions on the money. Now, I will highlight the fact that $140,000 of that is legacy fund. So that's not $308,000 and just free money. That includes legacy fund too, which is the board discretion. That's compared to $395,250. Now, the difference between those two, back towards probably the fall of last year, we cashed in a CD for about $54,000 to fund the checking account from which it came. In January, the end of January, we had to go back into our stock fund because we have a CD that actually matured in April. So we didn't want to take it out before maturity. We went in and we took out $30,000 from our stock fund to finance to put it in the checking account. And when you look at running a negative balance from last year, that's how you fund it. When you run out of money, that's where you go to your reserves. And and both of those decisions were made at the board meeting, and was given the permission to do that at the board. Also, when we do, just to give you some background, when we go in and take money, say from our LPL account, there are 2 signers on that account. Those signers have to agree with me to be able to take that money out. Question? Yeah. Hang on a second, hang on. Microphone's coming.
What do the letters? No, wait. Okay, what do the letters LPL stand for?
That is an investment account. I don't know what the letters actually stand for, but it's the name of a company that manages stock accounts, and it's countrywide. It's a big operation. But the name of our investment fund is the Green Century Fund. That's the actual name of the stock fund. So as I was saying, when the board makes a determination that we will take money from wherever to put in the checking account to keep things running, there are signers. For instance, when it comes to Premier America, when I went in to cash a CD, the 2 signers on that are David Smith and Brian Buck. And David came with me to Premier America to get a check and cash that CD. There's another CD sitting out there that will probably be brought in sometime in the June-ish timeframe, maybe a little bit earlier, to fund the checking account. Next slide. Serving our mission into the future. The proposed budget reflects long-term optimism and an expectation of growth. Ministry teams and activities are fully funded as requested by their leaders. Activities are being reinvigorated. New members are joining us. We had 10 new members pledging for the first time. And I don't know what the count was on Saturday, but we have more new members that will be joining us, which is good news.
As many as 11.
That's great. 11 additional?
Yeah, possibly.
Wow, that's fantastic. That really is great news. That is really good news. So we have to keep working, have fun together, join committees and ministries, invite friends, and bring your kids. But volunteerism is going to be extremely important. We can use all the volunteers that we could possibly handle. So if you can do that, it'd be much obliged. All right, any questions? Yes.
Just a minor comment. I would find some of those tables more useful if you had a line that compared to last year's actuals to this year's budget, as opposed to just comparing to.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, good point. Yeah.
And then a question, are there any sources of income the church is counting on that are things like grants that might be at risk because of the current administration?
No,
Thank you.
no.
At what point can we have a discussion about how we can, do things about some of the things that you brought up in these slides? Like, for example, what was it? You mentioned something about, other ways to bring in income, that's one thing. And another thing would be like taking a look at the numbers currently, like, is there a planned meeting to discuss those kind of topics?
Well, I mean,
Or
it's,
is this it today?
it's fairly limited, but, we do a pretty good job of raising money here in this church. This is a very generous congregation. Even though our numbers on pledging have dropped over the last few years and have never recovered to pre-pandemic levels, the optimism is something we just talked about. We've got possibly 21 new members joining us in the course of a year. I can't remember in my 10 years here where we had that kind of growth. So I think that's a positive thing.
Yeah, hi, Joe. Thank you for the presentation. I think I have a couple of questions, but I do have a statement. This is our problem to solve. It's not the incoming interim ministers or the next new settled minister's problem to solve. This is our problem to solve. So I want to echo what I think that was Nicole that was speaking, the necessity to have a deeper congregational conversation other than this meeting about the rubber hitting the road. Because that's, from my perspective, that's kind of where we are, where hard choices need to be made about some things.
Sure.
But it's important to stay optimistic. And in that optimism, in one of your earlier slides, you indicated that 78% of the pledges had been recorded as coming back, leaving 22% out there. Now, those 22%, I presumed you are accounting for at their current level. And
That is correct.
And you didn't indicate exactly how much money those people contribute as a block, that 22%, because of my idea is, are those folks likely to increase their pledges?
We anticipated they would not, so it's a conservative estimate.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
That's my comment. Okay.
So my figuring might be wrong, but we're using about 20% of our reserves each year. Is that about right? Dipping.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So
It's in that ballpark, Bob.
yeah. So in about 5 years, we'll be out of money.
If we continue, this is again, I think Brian's point is well made. We need to solve the problem, okay? I think we can still do that in concert with an interim minister. It's not his problem, it's our problem. But I think that's something,
Their problem.
yeah, I'm sorry. Pardonnez-moi.
So
In the
I-
general sense.
what are our plans to solve that problem?
Well, I think it's fairly obvious that, with so much money applied to staff, are we staffing correctly?
Okay.
I think that question has to be asked. And I think, Carolyn's information is really new.
Yeah.
And I know there's some people already talking about how we might do things. But I think that conversation has to be had both
Right.
among the worship committee, the music committee, and the board as to how might we do music in the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
I mean-
there's probably other ideas, so.
And I think, yeah, I think, I'm at a loss of thinking how we can improve income. I mean, I just don't know how much more we could do to improve income, and I'd be certainly willing to take any ideas. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Are you done?
You're going to get tired of me saying this, Joe.
I never get tired of you, David, you know that.
I'm a balance sheet kind of guy. And it would be helpful when you're presenting these slides to show what is going on with the fund balances, which those are balance sheet accounts, and the change over time would be helpful. The canary in the coal mine for me is the operating fund. And when that declines below 3 months of operating expenses, then a flag goes up in my mind.
Of course.
The other thing I'd like to point out is while the legacy fund is not legally restricted, there are policies related to the
course.
use of those funds at the board level.
Right.
And so that should be in people's mind as well. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. And just so you know, I'm about ready to post the latest financial report for March. And I'm doing this before the board has seen this, okay? Because these are the latest numbers I have in my possession. I'll get April in a couple of weeks. On this is our balance sheet, okay? It has always been placed under glass in the hallway. And by the way, as I was showing this morning, you can slide that open and you can take it down and you can read them. I just ask that you pin them back up when you're done. But they are available, okay? And we have taken an extra, we've really paid a lot more attention this year to being more transparent with the numbers, getting the numbers out as much as we can, giving you as much information as we can. So these are going up as after I finish today. I am also going to post this, the presentation that I just, okay? It's all going to be there. Anybody who would like to come and look, feel free. And the glass is a little slow to pull back, so don't think it's locked. It's not locked. Gina. Oh, I'm sorry, Ruth.
Okay. So, real quick first, so I've sat on the Finance Committee meeting for, I don't know, 6, 7 months before I was asked to participate in something else. It was wonderful to sit on it. I have so much admiration for the team because these guys sit there every month and go line by line at how our money is being spent and why is it over, why is it under. Yeah, I'm trying to avoid that. So they really do look at every line, even if it's $300 and we're over by $5, you know. They notice it and they kind of question it. So the other comment I want to make is I've been sitting through these for every year since I've been a member, but the last 3 years, and it's always been, we're going to balance the budget by increasing pledges. You had a slide that said, our pledges, we had a $21,000 reduction, and we had an increase of a little under $21,000. I think that was the same situation last year. And even though we have successful pledge drives, overall, we're sort of not gaining, certainly not $30,000 or $40,000 in new pledges. So that's concerning on how we are going to balance it.
Yeah, and I agree with
We
you.
don't have an answer now, I know, but I think I agree with the sentiment. We really need to have some serious discussions about this now.
And honestly, when I look at the trend on the pledge income side, if I were to stand here and tell you it's going to get better next year, I have no reason to say that. And we all know what the definition of insanity is. Okay, we can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So we are going to have to really focus on how are we spending our money? And whether that's looking at additional income opportunities, looking at reducing expenses in other areas, I don't know. But it's going to have to maybe a combination of those things. The one thing I will tell you is in this budget, there is $0 expected from our investment account with LPL. And we did that because we have no idea where the stock market's going to go. We have only lost probably a little over $10,000, which didn't get hurt as bad. It's come back a bit. But without knowing, if anybody here can tell me with certainty where the stock market's going this year, come see me, because I have no idea. So we put $0 in there. So any earnings we have from that would obviously reduce the budget. Yes, Diane?
Wait a minute, I'm next.
Oh, who's next?
I'm next.
Okay, Kathy's next.
Several questions. The 22% that we have not had come back, how many of them do we know for sure are still in the area and/or alive?
I can answer this just from the stewardship point of view and looking at this. They're all there. I mean, they are solid people. One of the things that this finance committee has done well is to get really on top of who's pledging and who's not. And that might have to do with some of the you know, there's a policy at a certain point at which people are dropped from from expectation, not from our sense of, come back and be part of the community, but their expectation of money. And this is probably, I think Joe said something like this, probably one of the hardest pledge numbers that we have seen in my time here.
Another question on legacy. I thought at some point a vote has to come before the congregation to use the money. You said board, but I thought at some point it had to come, maybe there's a limit
Oh, yeah.
and that, you can, the board, is there? I don't remember.
I know Brian has the detail on that more than I do. I think he could probably answer that
Does
question.
anybody? Does it?
Well, I mean, you built it, you own it.
The Legacy Fund has an old and honored history that goes back to Tom Berg and Nick Williams, for those of you who might remember those folks. And there are restrictions on it to allow us to do things that we would not normally be able to do as a congregation. It was never intended to be used for operational expenses, but we did use it on a number of occasions to help encourage pledging. And that's where you saw these, last year, $15,000, and it was like $35,000 and $50,000. They were matching fund programs that we did. And so that's the nature of that program. So if we were to use that in an emergency, you'd have to see the board bring that to us for part of the conversation. Yeah, it would have to be, because that would be, saying that you can't change a thing isn't really correct when you talk about Unitarian Universalism, in my view. Okay. But being reticent, the fact that we got through COVID, and, prior to COVID, we were at the top of the mountain of having enough members, pledging enough money to be able to meet a budget like what we have currently today. And then COVID hit, and everybody pretty much disappeared. Now, the other thing that came along with COVID is that other evil guy that's in the White House again, and that had a lot to do with increasing membership. People were so distraught that they were looking for a place like us. And I think that's some of what's going on right now again. At least, I don't want to call that a hope, but that's my impression. So having, what I really want to get to is, the finance team, and really this congregation in general, is very reticent about spending money. And that's what led to the savings that was accumulated over many years to get us to where we have this gift. and it's a gift of time. But we've been borrowing on it through the COVID years. And now we're at a place where things are getting tough. So that's my point of view, and I hope that answers your question.
It does. Now I have one more. Can we get it, can we post the slides someplace electronically, like?
Sure. Yeah.
Can you? I don't know what.
No, you can't post a PowerPoint there, I
You
don't think.
can't do
The file type won't be taken by
Yeah,
Facebook.
um,
But we can, I'll send it, in fact, Kitty has a copy of this, because she did some dusting and cleaning. I'll ask her if she can send it to, the name escapes me.
Jen?
Yeah, no, web administrator.
Kate,
Yeah,
Kitty's on that.
Katie Higgins. And have her post it there, so that people can look online and find it.
Oh, do the link?
Yeah.
Post the link? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
then
yeah,
that's
yeah,
a good
that we
idea.
can do.
Yeah.
That we can do.
Okay.
Let me write that down.
That was my question about posting it electronically. Also, will this, I'm assuming, will be put up on our YouTube channel, this right here, right?
If they're
Yes.
recording it, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. And if anybody on Zoom has a question, they can post it in the comments, in the chat.
Don't have any yet.
Okay, so I can give a little bit of history in terms of membership numbers, and I see you, Diane, then you're next. When I arrived, the membership was around, I would say, 220. And after the first evil guy bump, we got up over 250. That was the highest that we had gotten. And after, and then the COVID, not everybody disappeared. No, not even close to that, because we went from about 250 to something over, in terms of membership, about something under 210. So that isn't everybody. Right, over 3 or 4 years, but you said everybody disappeared. And it's not everybody. He stands corrected. Thank you. Anyway, so it went up to over 250, fell down in the 210s or teens, somewhere in there. And we're now getting closer to back to 230, 220, 225, 230. So just letting you know that's where things, and I do think we are getting a second evil guy bump. Yeah.
What was our last certification to the UA?
I don't have that number in the last certification to the UA, do you know that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, it's out in my head, but it's in Jim's.
Our last certification was 201, but that was before much of the growth we've had.
Is that pledging units?
That's
That's
members.
people, yeah.
All right, Diane, then Zena.
I might have missed it, but could you repeat the amount in the legacy fund, please?
The amount that we have in the legacy
Yeah.
fund, it's about $140,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And if one was in the process of writing one's will and wanted to be sure the church was included, to whom should they speak?
I would say you should talk to whoever is going to write the document on how they write it. If they need any information from the church in terms of tax IDs or information, they can request it from us. And Jen has that information.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I have one question. Is the interim minister costing us less than our settled minister?
Yes. The short answer is yes, probably by around $10,000-ish. Yeah.
Okay.
Now, the other thing, the other reduction is when, the numbers in the budget right now reflect 12 months of paying an interim minister. We more than likely will not be paying 12 months' worth of wages.
Okay, I have a comment. There is a memorial fund that is like almost zero or maybe $25 in case somebody a long time ago. Huh? Yeah, the memorial fund. And it's just a placeholder, a legal placeholder in case somebody donates from like a zillion years ago, and it's in their will. There is an endowment. Whoop. See, they don't want me to talk about it. Oh, there we go. There is an endowment fund that we have to get to $50,000 before the interest can be used. I don't know what it is, but it's maybe like 12, 15,000 now. And in my report that I have to do for the annual report, it will be there. And then there is the legacy fund. The legacy fund has rules. The endowment is what I donate to. So, because I want the church to be here, but it's not accessible right away. So that's your decision. But I vote for endowment because I want us to be here. And other people have different ideas.
David, correct me, or Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that when we budgeted for the interim minister, we budgeted the full level of benefits like health.
Correct.
Depending on whether we get somebody who's over 65 or under 65, that is an unknown.
That's correct, Jim. Yeah. In fact, again, that's a very conservative estimate that we put in for the interim minister.
That is an unknown. There are 2 benefits that the UUA recommends that we don't currently offer, and the current discussion on the board is we'll hold off on those till we get the settled minister. However, we lowered the minimum salary and housing, so we may need to bump that up closer to the midpoint. So there still is some negotiation. We have not had negotiation with any of our candidates. We have 4 candidates.
Good.
We'll be interviewing 3, so we'll know more in 2 weeks. There are 17 churches looking for an interim minister.
Wow.
There are 16 interim ministers available. Just leave that out there. Long-term disability and group life.
Mm-hmm. No.
Those are the 2 benefits that are not, that are up in the air.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? I was just looking at the P&L document that I have, and it's the wrong one. So I'm going to have to print out. I was looking at it, I'm like, yeah, it's March, but that's not March this year. It's not a good idea. So I will get that printed out, and I'll post it next Sunday. But the deck will get posted today, because I have a copy of that with me. I want to thank you all for your attention and your intention, and again, spending some time on Mother's Day with us here to talk about, some serious issues with the future of the church and from a financial perspective. So thank you very much, and go on and have a wonderful Mother's Day.